There is a popular saying that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And just because you experience something doesn't mean you have to become that which you experience. Often you see where people have been experienced violation of their bodies, and then they go and try to master their bodies in a different way. One that can lead them on the streets and feeling like they have control, but in essence they don't. I decided a long time ago that I didn't want to be a statistic. That just because you projected your pain on me doesn't give you the right to define or navigate my life. That I'm going to get through this, and I know there's a way. There's something. This life doesn't have to be about projected pain. It doesn't have to be a struggle in getting through my emotions and my feelings. I can master myself. I can preserve my body. I can make wise decisions or healthy decisions about what to do with my body and who to get in a relationship with. That often we blame others for what they did or didn't do. And then we end up continually experiencing that experience because we have put so much thought and effort in it. My experience with pain came at an early age, just like many people out there. Childhood, where you're just like, okay, wait a minute, this isn't the way that life is supposed to be. And I was very fortunate to have a mother who, yes, she experienced painful moments in her life, but she treasured them enough to turn them into teachable moments with her children. The very same thing that I am trying to do with my children, as well as do for you out there in the world. That I listened because my ground was my internal soil was so fertile because of what I had gone through. And, calling out to nature for help, receiving help in so many ways, the Bible, a bookmark of the Lord's Prayer, and also to being in tune with the messages that God gave my mother to share with us. And I started sharing them last week again, my mother's principles. And the first one is God is not in a building. He is in your heart. And that was after, we stopped going to church, and I had wondered, and she said, I want you to seek God. She didn't say I want, she said, seek God for yourself. And so that led me on a path of what I needed. I needed to believe that there was another way. I wanted to believe it. Somewhere in me, I knew that there was more to life than projected pain, that I didn't have to do it to others, and I didn't have to keep going through the same experience over and over again. Because often we look for that experience. We think because it has happened before that someone else is going to do it again. And there is a law of vibration, a law of attraction, that which we continue to put our thoughts on. When we talk about anxiety, when we talk about anger, when we talk about blaming others, when we talk about guilt and shame and resentment, those very same emotions, very same feelings are what attracts those experiences to us. And then we ask ourselves, how did I get here? How did I get here? It's not another's fault. It is our inability, our denial, our lack of knowledge of not knowing that, wait a minute, I don't have to keep experiencing this. And so today I share another one of my mother's principles. And it was a doozy when I was young. And I remember, my mother, she would often give to those that projected their pain on us, on me. And anytime they needed something, she would give it. And I like, Mom, why are you giving your stuff away? And they talk about you and they do this to you. And, I think about what was done to me. And she said, you give from the heart and you expect nothing in return. And I'm like, whoa. And she said, God knows your heart. He knows what you're doing. He sees what you are doing. And she was all about purifying your heart, that don't hold a grudge towards other people. And that was a big one, because that one took a while for me to really grasp that principle, that you give from the heart and expect nothing in return. Because often you see the mentality, even today, I'm going to give you this. And actually, I had a cousin to say that to me. My mother bought you this for Christmas. What are you guys going to get us? Our sister and brother, I did this for you when you were going through. What are you going to do for me now? It's that mentality that if I give to you, then I should expect something from you when I need it or when I don't need it. We see this in employees and employers. We see this in schools, teachers with students, teachers with teachers. You hear about these stories in marriages. If I do this for you, what are you going to do for me? And that is not love. Because I believe love, now that I know now, it gives away. It is more of a giver. And you've heard people say our Creator is a giver, giving us life, giving us things that we need when we need it, even when we know we don't need it. Things pop up, show up. Sisters and brothers, I did this for you. I gave you some of my candy. Now you should give me some of your candy. And I often tell my children that what you give is a single event. It has nothing drawn from it or to it. It is a single event. And you have to decide, am I going to share this or am I not going to share this? And it's based on nothing in the future, in the past, but what you're going to do right now. And I tell you, whatever, there's a Bible verse in Proverbs, I believe 23, that says that train a child in the way they should go. And we don't realize often when we share with our children, when we tell our children, I'm going to do this, so you better do this. I did this for you. And I found myself doing that. I did this, and I had to stop and say, wait a minute. Because I don't want my children going through life believing that if they do something for somebody, then that person should do something for them. Because the heart is not in it. That feeds more of greed, and it feeds more of expectations. And when we have expectations for people to do things, we're often in frustration. Here's the cycle of pain, right? So frustration, anger, resentment, shame, depending on what you gave, anxiety, because now you have to live up to this expectation of when you didn't have something and now you owe this person something and you feel in debt to them. You feel like you have to you have to give them something that maybe you don't have, or something that maybe you were saving for another person. And the Proverbs, train a child in the way you should go, is Proverbs 22:6. And so we have to examine our principles. Because again, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And I stood for self-preservation. I stood for, I want true love. And so that was that standard that I had in me as a child, and one that I used to compare the relationships that I was in, whether it was with the girls or whether it was boys. And I know that we can get away from that, but it is our trainings that we often turn to in desperation. How are you training yourself? How are you training others? How are you training your heart in the expectations and the emotions and feelings that continually feed your heart and therefore spring out of your actions and your voice and what you say and don't say to others and what you do and don't do to others? See, our actions go much, much deeper than what we think. It go beyond our beliefs and what we experience and how we responded to that experience. That when I tell my children stuff, I have to let go as a parent that I am sowing the seed. So what they do with the seed, I'm going to leave it into higher intelligence hand. I'm going to leave it there where it is. And it's hard as a parent because you want your children, right, to grow and have a happy, healthy life, prosperous life. But at what expense are we doing that? Are we so angry that we're beating our children to the truth? You better accept what I tell you. I told you this. Are we yelling at them and we're causing more anger, more hormones, cortisol, stress hormones in our body, and putting ourselves at risk for stroke, hypertension, heart disease, diabetes? What are we doing to ourselves? That when we give, there are no strings attached. We're giving from a place that is true love, the epitome of love. Because love remembers no wrongs, right? And eventually in my life, I helped out those that projected their pain on me. I was there for them when they lost loved ones. I was there for them when they moved. I was there for them to laugh. And how can I do that? Because my actions those days had no strings attached. That I was giving from a heart that eventually learned to forgive and to have compassion, because it's not a healthy place when you are so filled with grief, sorrow, shame, guilt, low self-esteem, low confidence, that you have to project your pain on other people. And there is compassion for the individual because you realize that you could have been there. You realize what dire state they are in to have done that to you or anyone else. So giving from the heart is really being at one with yourself, being your mind and your heart being at one, of really seeking the best thing to do and how to do it. We don't set up expectations. We don't let our emotions, our anger, our resentment, shame, we don't hold things from people. If there's information to share, we give it when we feel the need to give. Like if it's on our heart to give, then we give. So how are you giving from the heart? How are you training your children to give from the heart? Do you see how we can break the cycle of pain by not setting up expectations, by teaching our children to be decisive, by teaching our children to align with the higher version of themselves, with spirit, infinite intelligence, with listening and really listening to a person's heart and seeing beyond their actions and see their heart. Are we encouraging more compassion, more forgiveness? because I believe when you give from the heart, those are the concepts, the virtues that you also at the same time instill within yourselves and with your children. And that's how we create a generational love cycle. I'll talk to you guys soon. As always, make this lifetime great because you still can.